Hello, welcome to InSight. I'm Wendy Brokaw. Our topic today, at-risk kids between the ages of 11 and 18 who are getting the help and support they need from a unique nonprofit, Punx with Purpose. Who are they? And what makes its flagship annual event, Punx in the Park, so popular and important? Well, here to tell us all about it are my guests, Hailey Hulsey and Shyanne Tovar. Welcome to InSight today.
Hi, thank you for having us.
The first question anyone's going to ask is, what do you mean by punk?
Yeah, so I grew up in the punk culture, and so it was a very welcoming place for me. I was an emo kid. I've never claimed to be a punk. I always say I'm an emo. That's why they call me C-EMO. And so I just grew up in the punk culture, and they were very welcoming. And when you needed a family, that's just a family type of culture. And so Punx with Purpose is just like how our at-risk youth or any youth have a bad rep, that punks also have a bad rep, and like just to come together and change the perspective people have on just people in general.
Do you both have a social services background? It seems you do.
Yeah, we've been in the case management world. I've been in the case management world for, oh my gosh, probably like 8 years now. And then Shyanne has been there too.
Yeah, I've been in the human services field since like 2020 after I finished school. I worked with the adults for a good minute, and then I realized that I really wanted to be a part of prevention, and that's with our youth. And so that's where I met Hailey, and we have just been doing this ever since.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And lived experience, that's often so important. You draw for empathy and really connecting with kids from your own experience. Tell us a little about that, Shyanne.
I know for me, I grew up in a family where we were low income, and the need was there, and I could just see my family constantly needing and not getting the adequate support that they needed. And then just as a youth, falling between the cracks in school and people, because I kind of just fell under the radar. It wasn't super obvious that I needed support. So it's easy to be looked past, and I masked really well. So just coming from that perspective is kind of why my heart goes here all the time.
Hailey?
I was a youth experiencing homelessness throughout my adolescence years. Me and my sister, we went to like 60 different schools. My mom had a lot of mental health and substance abuse and lack of resources. And so I did a lot of couch surfing growing up. And so that's my lived experience, and just going through the motions. I knew that I wanted to work with youth when I was quite young, because I wish I had somebody like me. And so it's been such an honor, like actually becoming her and like bringing amazing people with me on this wild adventure.
And you talk about that experience as an honor because you get to walk alongside kids.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I just think it's such a, like, I get to show kids that like I made it, and the streets, I didn't allow the streets to take me, and like you don't have to either. And so just really being able to empower them that I still am an emo, I'm still look this way, I'm alternative, but I'm very successful. And that's like the beauty of this whole company and all the programs we offer, is that there's a lot of lived experience and a lot of alternative people in this field with us. And so it shows youth that you don't have to look a certain way that society wants you to be. You can be your genuine self. And I'm very proud that like I overcame everything, and like am running a successful nonprofit that now will help other youth. So.
And you have named your place Stormy's Place after your sister.
Yes.
Tell us how that came about.
Yeah, so my sister is still alive. But just kind of like how Shyanne was saying, me and my sister were going through the same thing, experiencing a type of homelessness. But my sister, you wouldn't have known. She's super preppy, blonde hair, straight A student, super happy-go-lucky. Like she's a type that falls down the stairs and she's like, wow, I got down those really fast. So you wouldn't know, right? Like she was very, like you would have no idea. And so we were at an event and a lady's like, oh, you help troubled youth. And I'm like, oh no, like that felt so icky. And it just got me thinking about my sister. And so to this day, my sister's house is still very much where all my family gathers. Like she's my safe place to go to. And so it just brought light that like, you don't have to look a certain way to be experiencing something traumatic in your life. Trauma does not have a face. And so we named it Stormy's Place. And it's also disguised as well. Like if somebody's asking you where you're going, you're like, oh, I'm just going to Stormy's Place, which sounds like you're going to a friend. So it's been really cool to be able to name it after somebody. It's so important and that has survived as well.
Yeah.
Shyanne, I noticed you nodding your head in assent when she said trauma does not have a face.
It's very true. I mean, I think people lose sight of that as they get older, and then our adults forget that youth have a voice. And I think as adults we forget that we were once a youth not being heard, and so we pride ourselves on being that nonprofit that isn't doing things that we think that you should be doing. We are doing things that they tell us they need, which I love so much and I love being a part of.
A youth group said something about you. What was that?
So we just got the iLead award for Community Impact Award from the iLead, and it's like the coolest award that I feel like we've got. I mean, we're very honored
Explain,
to have
iLead, isn't that a City of Salem initiative through their community services, and they have a youth advisory board composed of young people?
with youth,
Yeah, from the various high schools.
Yeah, and so they come together and they learn different life skills, they learn all these different techniques and all, like, it's just like a really cool community. And then they go around and like they talk about different like nonprofits, and so we got awarded with the Community Impact Award, which is like such an amazing honor. And so the youth, there was like a couple things, but the one that stuck out the most to us, and may or may not have made people cry, that it was like we meet youth where they're at, where they are, not where we think they should be. So if a youth, like, they beat themselves up all the time for not being good enough, and we're like, no, like, we'll love you through it, we're here for you, like, we'll walk alongside you, like, but we'll also hold you accountable, like, we're just an accountability buddy too, like, hey, like, but we also hold people around them accountable too, like our community, like, just keeping on track with everything. So it really stands out. Our mission is to meet youth where they're at, and so people are recognizing that, and that's really cool.
What makes that interesting to me is that seems so different from the adults know what's best for kids and they're in the best position to tell them what they need. Here, your decisions on your services and how to help the kids involves their input. Am I correct?
Yeah, like we literally are starting a youth action board, and they will be helping us build our programs that we have within like Punx of Purpose as a whole, and that's including like our life skills class, like asking them like, what would you like to learn, and really asking them, and then helping us build Punx in the Park. Everything is youth based, like Punx in the Park. All of our bands are picked by youth, like just very much all of our guest speakers are youth, and so like time changes, right? And like mine was very different from their experience, from what they're doing, and like it's just a different world, and so we need to keep up with them in order to provide the best services.
Punx in the Park is a good example of how you use that to grow the organization, grow that event into, it involved much more than just music and a day in the park. Tell us that story, because it's so interesting to me. What was the first one like?
Yeah, the first one, it was wild for sure. We did it in 5 weeks. I got a couple community partners that like had lived experience and just like had a lot of passion for youth. We sat down and were like, I want to get alternative people, some music, some resources, and gather with youth and be like, you can do this. Like, I'm successful, you can be successful, and like show them what we needed. And then it just turned into a concert. The first event, there was like 30 resource tables, because a lot of people were kind of hesitant because the word punk.
Was that a problem with them wanting to participate, some not wanting to?
Yeah, I think like the whole like punk culture, right, punk music, is loud and fast, and so it could be a little intimidating for sure, and we were new, and so I wasn't new in the community, like a lot of community partners knew who I was, and so some of them were like, yeah, let's do it, and then it was a huge success. Every year I'm like, nobody's gonna show up, like I didn't think anyone was gonna show up to the first one because we did it so fast, but people just show up, and now we have a wait list for resources, and so
wow.
Yeah, it's
speaking of resources, Shyanne, what did people find out that was really needed, and that's what they bring now?
Well, I think just with Punx in the Park, I feel like the resources, like their first year, they didn't know what to prepare for, right? They had never been to an event like this before. And then we would talk to community partners after. They're like, I loved it, or I'm really upset that I missed it because I heard it was super cool. And then now they're planning to attend our resource event by being big, right? Like each table, some of them are like, oh, I want to have this at our table, and I want the interaction, because they're just really loving what we're doing, and and I love that, because they're wanting to engage with youth more and be more low barrier, like which is our view of why we want resources to be more available. And people are really listening, and they're hearing it, and they're really putting action into it, which I think is a huge part of Punx in the Park, is changing the community dynamic on how they provide youth resources, which is cool. I love it.
And community partners are like asking, like in December, like, hey, can I get on the list? Or like, it's not like, and it's so cool to hear like why, like what they want. Like we had Pacific Source, like what can we bring for the youth to engage with us? And they told us last year they had like a canvas, and youth were able to paint on it and like interact, and they're like, we want to give it to you. And I'm like, that's so cool. And so like, it was just a really cool thing to be able to experience, and so engaging with the youth.
When our camera crew went out and got the video of the 2023 event, I asked them, what was your takeaway from having gone to this? And they said, authenticity. It just felt like such an authentic thing. Does that surprise you?
No, because I'm very real, and we hear that all the time. Like we hear like, we're not the type to just like plan and talk. We're the like people that plan, talk, and do. Like I don't even think we plan, we just talk and do. And so like we are all our very genuine selves. I've never like, growing up, it was hard being who I wanted to, like who I was, and so I stopped being that, and then like I just felt so not in my own body, and so being able to be our genuine selves, which is what youth need. They need a sense of belonging. That's like their biggest need, is like community, and so that's what that provides. This whole program provides a sense of belonging.
Tell us more about where they go, Stormy's Place, and what's it there for them. I keep thinking 11 years old, oh my gosh, homeless, it's unthinkable. And yet, how many people have you served so far since you started your nonprofit? Young people.
Yeah, just last year we served about 1,500 youth.
1,500 youth?
Within all of our programs. And so Punx in the Park, like we had about 500, but the rest of it was through our other programs that we provide.
Our pop-ups that we provide, where we go to the community, go to where they're at, our outreach team, where we're boots on the ground. That's our EMOs team, where we go with backpacks, walking around in the elements, just hanging out with youth, meeting them, getting some of their basic needs met, telling them about our program so that they can engage with us more if they need. We also attend resource events of other community partners, just trying to get it out there as much as possible, making it as low barrier as we possibly can, that youth get their services. Yeah,
and we have
they need.
The other programs too, which is like Punkmas, which is one of my personal favorites. Growing up, we got a lot of like going to get assistance with like Christmas presents, and we'd go in and it's like cold and not even anything I wanted, and people were coughing. A lot of the cutoff for Christmas presents is like 11, 12. I'm 35 and still like getting Christmas presents. And so typically youth just get what they get, right? But like they're still human. They're still like we shouldn't be pushing our youth to be anything other than youth. And so we ask them directly, what do you want? And we give them a $75 budget. They tell us what we want. We go shopping. Mostly Shyanne goes shopping. And then we wrap the presents. We don't just, put them in bags. And then we have a holiday event that they come and they get to we have other little presents that they can shop with for their siblings. They get hygiene, they get snacks. And then we also have our tote program that we're launching after spring break. And that's tools offered to every student. And it's super low barrier. They're totes that are in the schools. And they're able to just access the totes through their community partners within the schools, and so they don't have to wait on anybody.
What about the homeless aspect of it in school?
Yeah, so there's it's no like secret that we have a homeless problem right now, but it's people don't really look at the youth part. McKinney-Vento is one of the only, and CSOC help the homeless population within the school, especially MVP.
That's the law that says that whether you're homeless or not, as a youth, you get that free public school education.
Yes.
And the resources to attend school.
And the resources to attend school.
They'll have to provide transportation for them. So if they're staying somewhere that's out of their school district, they still want them to go to their home school and have a sense of stability. And so they provide the transportation for them. And so there's a lot of youth that from just in Salem-Keizer School District that are experiencing some type of homelessness. And homelessness doesn't have a face either. And that's the perspective we're really trying to change.
Yeah, we're talking all kids, not just at risk, but all kids.
All kids.
Yeah.
And homelessness can be anything from couch surfing, doubling up, living in a trailer that doesn't have electricity or power, like just unstable housing in general. I personally was couch surfing. I could have gone home. I had a home, I had a room, I had those things, but it was unsafe sometimes. And so I would rather not put myself in that situation. And so it was just easier just to hang out with my friends and sleep on their couch. And so we need to recognize that as a type of homelessness that youth are experiencing.
Shyanne, it sounds like these kids are in survival mode. They don't really, they're trying to be, they're probably terrified on the inside. If it were for me, 11 years old, do they get to, how can they start their search or not only for safety and needed comfort and care and even a meal from Punx with Purpose, and then what do you do next step so that they don't fear that you're going to get them in touch with authorities that are going to put them away in foster care or something like that?
Well, our perspective...
That's an overstatement perhaps, but do you understand?
It happens.
But it's a fear.
It is a fear.
For
It's
sure.
a very real fear. We as an organization just are trying to, when we say break barriers, we mean break barriers. Like that's taking away the gatekeeping of services, community partners collaborating together, because when we have division between the organizations who provide the resources, our youth and our families, they really see that. They see it and they're affected by it. And so we're just trying to grow a healthier way that youth can access resources, and that's by, working with their schools, advocating for them, letting them know that our youth, when they're experiencing homelessness and they're in survival mode, they can't focus in school. That's not their main priority. We all know as adults, school is really important, but also so is having a place to stay, being safe, and food, and all of those things. And your brain can't learn new things if you're constantly in survival mode. So just really taking that into consideration and seeing the youth as what it is that they need, and getting those needs met so that they can move past survival mode and be successful in whichever way that looks for them.
And that, again, with the asking the youth what they need. So instead of being upset that a youth is sleeping in your classroom, maybe ask them why they're sleeping. Why are you so tired? What's going on? How can I help? And with our system, we build trust before we just do an intake, because intakes have a lot of sensitive questions, right? And so we want to build that trust in order for them to be themselves, their experiences, that they feel like they're in a soft space, that we're being able to provide those services. So asking directly, how can we help? We're being genuine, and our youth know that we're being genuine. We'll make fun, yeah, we need to collect your data because we can't just Kool-Aid into the government's office, be we need money. We are really asking them what we can do to help and how we can help.
Yeah.
And we get great responses. Our youth are loving what we're doing. And same with Punx in the Park. If a youth is not ready to get resources, then they're just going to a show with their friends. And then we give them a passport, they go around, talk to the resources, and they get a prize. And so now they're just playing a game with their friends, but then they're able to see and recognize what kind of resources are out there. MVP is there, and a lot of youth don't know that MVP is in their schools and be wow, I am experiencing homelessness. I now know this worker is in my school and I can ask for that on my own time. Or they can access services right then and there too, and that's happened. last Punx in the Park, we had almost 20 youth sign up for food stamps and OHP at the park because that was available for them while they were exploring, getting free clothes and free shoes and all these different activities that they can do. And it's just bringing community together. And so that's just the beauty of it, of just really meeting them where they are in any walks of life. They can be, I just dropped out, or I'm about to graduate. I need, like, whatever that may look like for them. And to celebrate too, like, I love when things work out. Like, we just had a youth like get housing and we like jumped up and down. Like, how cool is that, you know? And like, it took people like Shyanne to advocate for them, to show up, to be there, to step in, and like, and now they're, you know, doing
Yeah,
things.
because our youth aren't, I don't think that youth are meant to just know how to do adulting. I hardly know how to adult, and I am an adult.
I still ask my grandpa about taxes.
And so I think that it's really important that we lose the mind frame of, well, they just need to know how, they need to do it on their own. We can't do everything for them. That is true eventually, but you gotta teach them how. That's what we do for any of our children,
Meet
right?
them where they are.
We teach them how to do it, and then they learn from there. They don't just automatically know how to do things.
And that gets them out of survival mode as an adult.
Yes.
Like, I had to learn very quickly all the time, and now I feel like I'm consistently in survival mode, and when it's calm, it freaks me out, like,
Yes,
because I've
it's
just
true.
grew up in chaos.
It's a vicious cycle that we are hoping to try to break with at least any youth that comes across our path.
Tell me about punk culture in just a little bit more detail, so that at least it settles some of the myths that you hear all the time.
Yeah, like punks, like a lot of times I hear like they're like Nazis and like just like not good people, like just not. And I mean, there's good and bad in every culture, right?
Yes.
Like, that's just a fact. Like, but there's also good. And like, you know, the first Punx in the park, we had these like little unicorns that like showed teeth when you push their head, and there was these guys walking around with huge mohawks with these little unicorns, right? Punks are people, like, they want to help, they have their own community, they're sincere, they just look and express themselves differently, and that's okay. And so, and I think that's so relatable to any youth, is that like, yeah, I can look like this, but I can also relate to different types of youth. You don't have to be punk in order to go to Punx in the Park or Punx with Purpose in general to access services. We have all sorts of different youth. We have youth that are gearing up to be blue collar. We have youth that, you know, are in different situations that maybe we can't relate to. We have youth that are full ride scholarships to universities. Like, it just doesn't matter. They just need somebody and some place to belong.
What would you say they really hold dear as values that you can almost feel and share? For example, I think I read something about when someone is in the pit.
Yeah, so like a lot of the times when we're moshing, I personally am too old to mosh anymore, but it was when people, like during Punx in the Park, we say, hey, like, we love that you guys are going to do mosh pits, please be safe, but also, what do you do when somebody falls down? You pick them up. And like, that's just how the culture is like, when somebody falls down, you pick them up. It's not a handout, it's a hand up. Like, we're here to like help, and we want to help. And it's not, I tell youth all the time, they're like, I don't want to be a burden. I'm like, the definition of burden is carrying something you don't want to carry. I want to carry you, so you are not a burden. Like, I am honored to walk alongside you. And I think that's the difference that they feel, is that we walk alongside them.
What are community groups looking at you and thinking is of value to them?
We get get asked a lot to be on different boards. Like, we're part of System of Care, where we bring youth to the table and talk about what our youth are experiencing. And so people are wanting to hear our unique perspective. And so like, but we always are like, are we here because you want to check a box off, or do you really want to hear what we have to say, and are you willing to make change? And so people like that about us, that we're very loud and honest.
Yes.
And so, but we always bring youth to the table. It's, again, my story has already gone and passed. My story could have been prevented, as many of the youth that we have now, with resources. And so we bring them to the table because that's what they're experiencing in real time.
Yeah. It's very true. I think that we try to do it in like the best way possible when we're trying to advocate, but we're okay with the uncomfortable that it brings to people, because that's our job all the time when we advocate for youth. We put ourselves in uncomfortable situations just to get the needs met for youth. Unfortunately, that's how it is sometimes, but I think that people are really getting on board with the type of change that we're wanting to make. So it's very exciting.
Well, our last question, what is it that you need? What do you want? Volunteers, for example.
Yeah, so Punx in the Park takes a lot of volunteers, so we are looking for volunteers. We are looking for volunteers to come hang out at Stormy's Place. We have so many different things that you can do to serve. Like, you're like, oh, I don't like working with youth. Well, do you like to hang up clothes? Do you want to like go pick up items for us? Well, I don't know how to, I want to do outreach, but I don't know how to talk to youth. Okay, do you know how to carry a backpack? Because we have 3 different jobs when it comes to outreach. Like, you could just literally hand them snacks or be the watcher, whatever that looks like for you. You can help us unload and load the trucks. Like, if you really don't want to mess with the youth, that's our biggest one, is like unloading and loading, and just give it a chance. Like, youth are not as scary. I find adults scarier than youth. So like, I mean, you can relate to anything and they can relate to you. You don't know what a youth is experiencing. My husband's a blue collar and he's like, well, I'm a truck driver, but like the youth are so drawn to him sometimes. And so it's like, just, yeah, and we also need like hygiene, school supplies, masculine clothes are a huge need. We also have a food pantry youth can access, so like food is a huge thing for us as well.
Is there a role anywhere in your organization for the parents?
We want to help the youth, but also like as a parent, like we can speak to parents and being like, hey, this is like, we can help, but like we really are youth advocates, and so like we can help in some way of like, yeah, like here's some resources to help your youth, or we can even do a little like, like between them, kind of be the neutral ground of being like, hey, like I hear you, understand you. Youth are sometimes hard, but also adults are hard to talk to as well. And so just trying to be that soft space for youth to feel safe enough to use their voice.
So you occasionally do talk with parents, and that's a healthy sign that they actually want to hear from you.
Yeah, we want parents to use us as a tool, right? Because it takes a village to raise a child, and sometimes, unfortunately, you can say something to your kid and they are absolutely not going to hear it. We can say the same thing and they're going to be like, oh wow, you're right. It's just how it is. I don't know why kids' brains are built like that.
Yeah.
I know I was like that growing up too. My mom couldn't tell me anything. So we just want parents to use us as a tool to support their kid in being the best that they can be, and to focus on their mental health or whatever the case they're struggling with, and not as a barrier to them, but just as a tool, a helpful tool.
And there's no shame of asking for help as a parent, right? I myself, right, like I'm a youth whisperer. I like hang out with youth. I really know how to work with youth. But my son was going through something, and I like talk youth off ledges. I would go home and I feel like I would kick my kid right off the cliff. I could not get through to my kid. And luckily, like, I know how to use my resources. And at first I was ashamed because I'm like, I'm Hailey, this is what I do for a living. But I was too emotional. I was too close to it. And so I had to reach out. And now my son is graduating high school early, just like this amazing kid. And it was because I reached out to my village, like Shyanne, these people that love my son and love me without judgment helps so much. Because how can I go to my community partners that I help their youth and be like, hey, I need help, without feeling shame? And when you build that community connection, you also build family and trust. Some of my, Cheyenne my best friend, and it was because we were community partners together. And so that's how that became. And so you really get a sense of belonging as a whole when you have community behind you.
How can people get in touch with you? What's your website?
Yeah, so our website is punxwithpurpose.org. You can put volunteers, you can donate, or if you need help yourself, we get it directly. You can request services, and a case manager or a youth advocate, which is a case manager, will reach out and get you the resources and schedule an appointment.
Well, Hailey Hulsey, C-EMO, that's CEO, of Punx with Purpose, and you as the program director, Shyanne Tovar. I can't thank you enough for today's visit. just loved every minute of hearing what you plan to do and have done and why.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having us. We really appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us today on InSight. I'm Wendy Brokaw.